Welcome back to the channel. So glad to see you. Glad to have you. Pull up a chair. Let's talk about the Renegade Woodcarvers Roundup. If you haven't heard about this, the Renegade Woodcarvers Roundup is a wood carving event that occurs in Lebanon, Tennessee, twice yearly. It happens in March and then again in October. And it's 5 full days of wood carving. Each of those 5 days, you're going to have a different instructor. For my time there, I had one day with Wayne Larimore, Mitch Cartledge, Rich Weatherby, Floyd Radigan, and then Bob Thurston, which are 5 fantastic carvers. Each of them are members of the Caricature Carvers of America, which is another credential to their name for how great they are. And outside of that, there was also Steve Brown and Dwayne Gosel there just walking around and having fun, right? And Dwayne was carving and selling roughouts, and Steve Brown was also in the same carving and selling roughouts. And just being able to talk to all of these people is a really neat thing to be able to get advice and stuff like that from as one thing. But then being able to carve with some of them is just absolutely an amazing experience, because I spent a full day sitting at Wayne Larimore's table, seeing the carvings that people are working on, getting a chance to sit with Wayne and pick his brain on carvings and develop study sticks and get a plan for how I'm going to attack this rough out, and seeing how he does eyes versus how Bob Thurston does eyes, or how Mitch Cartledge does eyes, or Mr. Weatherby does eyes, or Mr. Radigan does eyes, or Mr. Brown does eyes. I got to see all of that right then. And it really brings home how different every carver is in the way they do things. In the Caricature Carvers of America book on eyes, The Eyes Have It, right? It's a great book. And in that book, each of these carvers show different methods for doing caricature eyes. They're showing their method. And it really drives home how no one's doing this the same. I mean, some folks are doing things very similar, but they're going about it in different ways. They have different steps for getting the same thing. Rich Weatherby has what he calls the diamond eye, for how to set up an eye with a diamond shape, and then he brings this eye out that just looks absolutely fantastic. It's wonderfully done. And seeing his process for that and having him teach that to me when I'm right there and able to ask questions and response was a wonderful thing. It's 5 days. You've got a different instructor for each day, and each day you can work on the rough out that you've bought from that instructor. And there's tables around the room with rough outs available from those instructors. So what is a rough out real quick? A rough out is like this. This is a rough out for a cowboy that I have from Roger Stegall. And here is a finished cowboy that I did from this rough out. And you can see, like, it's a good size difference. Most of the wood has already been removed, and the goal with the rough out is to do the detail work, the fun part of the carving, and to practice that detail work, because you'll get to practice how to shape eyes and how to shape nose and how to put in a mustache, or how to put in, like on this handkerchief and the buttons, right? How to do the work on that, and how to do the work on the back of the handkerchief, all of that on the hat. You get to spend time working on that from the rough out. And so each of the carving instructors there will have rough outs available that you can buy, and then you can spend time working on it with the instructor and getting questions answered while you're there, which is absolutely fantastic, and it's a great experience. Okay, so the Renegade is set up like this, with 5 tables along the room, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. At the end of each of these sets of tables is one large circular table. So there'd be 3 regular sized tables, and on each of the tables, 4 people can sit with 2 on each side. So let's say take table number 2 as the example here. The instructor sits at the big round table, and then every 15 or so minutes, someone will go up there and sit with the instructor while he goes over what they need to do on their carving, what they can work on, answers questions for them, and then they go back to their seat, and the next person goes up. And then when this person finishes, this person goes up. When this person finishes, this person goes up. When this person finishes, this person goes up, so on and so forth, interlacing back and forth. Or it might do one side and then the other side. It depends on the instructor. But there's going to be 5 instructors. And each day of the Renegade, the instructor will move from one table to the next table. So you'll maintain your seats. Let's say you're sitting right here. You stay seated there the entire time for the Renegade, and the instructors move. So on day 1, I had Wayne Larimore at my table. So let's say Wayne's here, right? And on day 2, Wayne moves over to this table, and maybe Bob Thurston, who was here, moves over to table 2. And then Mitch Cartledge, who may have been on table 4, he moves over to table 3. And then whoever was on table 5 moves over to table 4. And for me, it was Rich Weatherby was the last instructor we had. And so each Renegade, you get 5 days, and you get 1 day, one full day with each instructor to answer questions and to go over things, and just get to go through the whole gamut of instructors. The beauty of this system is that while at the sides of the room they are selling all of their rough outs, there's rough out tables here and here and here all along the outside edges of the room, and there's rough outs for sale from Mitch Cartledge and from Mr. Weatherby and from Bob Thurston and Wayne Larimore, and Steve Brown has his stuff there, and Dwayne Gosnell had his stuff there, and Dwayne's also got the Bishop rough outs as well, and I think he's got some rough outs from Stetson. He's got a lot of rough outs available, but not all of the ones that he has available were available at the Renegade. So there's just a lot of rough outs available and a lot of opportunity to work on them. The other thing to remember is that the people sitting at your table, some of these guys are really fantastic carvers in their own right. Some of the notable carvers that were just there carving, a fellow named Pat Coffey, and you may have seen some of his work, he was sitting at one of the tables at the Renegade, and a lot of other folks with a huge amount of experience outside of just the instructors that are there and available that you can ask questions from. And the amount of knowledge in this room, I mean, you're gonna get better at wood carving just by being around these folks and interacting with them. So it was a fantastic setup. And I know there's a very high dollar graphic here. No expense was spared in the quality of this graphic. None whatsoever. So I'm gonna save this graphic for later, obviously, because it was just so expensive to create. We don't want to lose it. If you know me at all, you know that I like to do research. So before I went on this trip, I asked the Renegade Woodcarvers group on Facebook and a couple of places on Let's Start Carving. I said, hey, for folks who have been, what's the advice you can give me? What can you tell me before I go that I need to do to prepare to make the most out of my trip? I'd like to share some of the advice with you, specifically 5 things I thought were absolutely fantastic. So let's start with that. Number 1, the most frequently mentioned thing was bring cash. Cash, because cash for the rough outs, cash for any other tools that you might want to buy while you're there, or books. Steve Brown was selling books. Floyd Radigan was selling DVDs. There were so many different items being sold. Wayne Larimore had Helvey rough out signature series knives. So did Bob Thurston, and those were there sitting on their table available to purchase. And if I didn't have cash with me, I would have had to run out to the ATM to get cash to come back and buy it, and someone might have sold it out from underneath me if I didn't have the cash on me. So number 1, bring cash. Number 2, and a lot of people mention this one as well, is have something comfortable to sit on. There are metal folding chairs available at the Renegade. You can sit in those, absolutely, but if you bring a comfy cushion or a chair, you can have a much better time, much more comfortable time. I took that comment seriously, and I've got a rolly chair, an office chair out in the garage, and I figured I'm driving there anyway. I packed that thing up in the back of the vehicle and drove to Renegade with that there, and as soon as I got there, I took it out, and it was absolutely the best decision that I made throughout the entire trip, was bringing that rolly chair. I saw that Chuck Ducky Shuck, I see you there, brother, he did the same thing, and he was sitting comfortably the entire time. And some folks would say, oh, these chairs, oh yeah, it's terrible.
My back. Oh, my back.
Not me. I was sitting in a nice, comfortable chair the entire time because I took that advice to heart. Number 3, bring a light. I am not as young as I used to be, and I'm already using reading glasses when I carve. On top of that, I need to have bright lights. Now in here, in my carving area, I've got bright lights always available, always ready to go, so that when I'm carving, I've got bright lights that I can have on me right away. While at the Renegade, what I used is this contraption, which is a DeWalt, so I can sit on top of the desk while I'm carving, and it produces a lot of light. Now there's a Ryobi version, which most folks have. I just happen to have DeWalt batteries already, and so I found this one on Amazon, and the battery just slides in and out relatively easy. The nice thing about the DeWalt version that I have is that it's got a USB port in the front, so I can charge my camera and charge my phone. And I'm one of those people that I have the phone a lot. And it's also got this clip function, so you can clip it on a desk or whatever. I think that this cheap knockoff version of a DeWalt, because this is not actually a DeWalt brand light, this cheap knockoff version is not as well made as the Ryobi one that I saw other folks using. So your miles may vary. If you want to get the Ryobi one, that's the one that most folks were using. It looks almost exactly the same as this, but yeah, this was like 50 bucks on Amazon. If you don't have the batteries already, that's where it can get expensive for your light source. But find a light source that works for you. It doesn't have to be this one. It doesn't have to be the Ryobi one. It can be whatever you want to be. Bob Thurston had on his toolbox mounted 2 pieces of wood and just cheap LED lights strung between them, and then a DC converter just plugged into power. Use whatever you want to use, whatever's going to work for you. If you need to have extra light, I definitely highly suggest it. And that's reason number 3. Number 4, arrive early. And by arrive early, I mean the day prior, people are setting up. If you arrive on Sunday, because this thing it goes through Monday through Friday, right? And you're going to start bright and early Monday morning. Well, arrive on Sunday and you can get there Sunday night and purchase roughouts already. Some of these carvers are going to sell out on specific roughouts. The carving that I did with Mr. Radigan, this wizard, if I hadn't purchased this Sunday night, I wouldn't have got him because this wizard was sold out by Monday morning. So if there's specific roughouts that you want, get there Sunday night, early in the evening, and you'll be like, take a look at what all's available, find a good seat at the table, and then you'll be able to get the seat you want and buy the roughouts you want and get everything set up for your whole week of wood carving. So arrive early on Sunday. On Sunday night at about 6 p.m., there was a meeting so that Mr. Brown could go over what the week's events were going to be. And every day there was a little bit something going on. They did a picture on one day of the whole group. On Wednesday night or Thursday night, I forget which one, there was a wood carver's tool blanket trade where they laid out a tool blanket and people could come up there and barter and trade things around with one another. And there's all sorts of things going on. And every night the carving went on until 8 p.m. You can carve as late till 8 p.m. Some folks finished at 5 p.m. and they went back to the hotel room and they're done. But some folks stayed and carved all the way till 8 p.m. and that's absolutely fantastic. And last but not least, thing number 6 that people told me to think about that I absolutely did and I made use of was have a plan. Have a plan for what you want to learn while you are there. Have a plan for what you want to get accomplished with these instructors. You may know that Rich Weatherby, he's really famous for this type of diamond eye that he does, or not really famous, but he's known for this type of diamond eye that he does. I wanted to learn how to do the diamond eye. I wanted to learn how to do fantasy creatures from Floyd Radigan, and I got him to carve me this little dragon thing. And I wanted to see all of these things from these different guys, and I wanted to work on especially eyes and noses. I wanted to get better at facial expressions, and so I concentrated on that. And I talked to these carvers about that, and they made for me a bunch of study sticks that I'd like to show you here in a minute. But have a plan. That's the bonus reason I want to talk to you about. That's the thing to think about before you go to a Woodcarvers Roundup, or even if it's not the Renegade. Maybe it's the Woodcarvers Roundup in Utah. Maybe it's the Character Carvers Association Carving the Rockies thing that happens once a year. Whatever carving event you're going to, if you're going to get to spend time with an instructor, have a plan before you go there on what you want to learn to make the most of your time. So as yet another reason that the Renegade is so awesome, study sticks, right? These are not study sticks that I got for purchase. This is wood that I took to the Renegade with me. And while I was sitting there, I got a chance to talk to Steve Brown, and Steve Brown showed me how he carved eyes. He went step by step through the process with me, showed me how he sets up faces and noses and how he does those eyes. And I saved this and he signed it for me. But it wasn't just Steve. While I was doing the class, I would have Mr. Weatherby. I said, show me how you set in a nose and an eye. And he just went ahead and he did the whole face while I was sitting there, and he signed it for me and dated it, which is really a fantastic keepsake to have, not only of my experience with Mr. Weatherby, which was fantastic, and he was just absolutely wonderful, but to see how he carved this face. I mean, adjust my lighting here. Look at the way that turned out. I mean, like, Mr. Steve Brown and Mr. Weatherby, you get to see the difference in the style of carvings that they do and the style of the eyes. Weatherby's got these diamond eyes, he calls them, and it's just absolutely fantastic. When I was with Mr. Bob Thurston, he showed me a little bit more detail how he sets up a realistic eye, how he can set up eyes in different ways, and then he signed it as well. It's been great getting to know you. Your enthusiasm is great. Mr. Thurston was absolutely fantastic, and he said it in the class I had with him, or when I was sitting with him, rather. He said that everyone's going to be doing eyes differently, and I really see that on display as I show you these other carvings. He said that it's not about how someone else does eyes; it's how is Johnny going to do eyes. He heard that quote from Mr. Harold Inlow, I think it was, and it was just absolutely fantastic. And of course, Mr. Mr. Wayne Larimore, I got to sit with again, and I love sitting with Wayne, and he showed me his ear again because I wanted to see how he did it, and he showed exactly how he did that. He showed me his eyes right there, and look at the detail he put in that. And we talked about ears, and he wrote on there, and then of course he signed that as well. And then I got this one here from Mr. Mitch Cartledge. We talked about mouths, and we talked about eyes and setting up noses and like different types of eyes. And then when I sat with Mr. Floyd Radigan, he carved on 2 sticks. Actually, he carved on 3 sticks for me. Let me show you the third one in a minute, though. So he did this little study stick for me with steps 1, 2, and 3 for a face. And then when we were talking, he showed me a larger eye, how he does ears, because I was wanting to do ears on a rough out I was working on of his, this one in particular, and he was showing me how he would do ears after I had done these ears. He's like, here's how I do ears, and he showed me that. And he showed me how to set up faces with a kind of goofy grin on there, you know, and then eyes and how he sets that all up. And he did all of that on the study stick that I can take with me, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, while I was sitting there with Mr. Radigan, when I went back up there, he said, what do you want me to carve for you? Because I already had my rough out done. I said, can you just carve a dragon? And he thought for just a moment and said, yeah, I can carve a dragon. And he took the stick and he carved a dragon's head right in the end of that, just so quick. I mean, it's just amazing to see someone who's that adept at something, right? Because Floyd does a lot of fantasy carvings, and he just went to town and thought only for a moment before he started carving a dragon's head into a stick of wood. And I've carved dragon's heads, but I couldn't just sit down and whittle one out so quickly and so easily. And it really speaks to the experience level, I think, that he has, that he was able to do that. So these study sticks for me are going to be a treasured keepsake, one that I can use to reference back to as I practice faces, which I've been doing. I have been practicing all kinds of faces on my own in just on sticks, and just really just going to town trying to make as much as I can to make progress. And some of these are terrible. Actually, many of these, most of these are absolutely terrible. Like this one here, like that sunk in way too deep under that nose. This top lip is almost non-existent. It's a terrible face, but I'm getting better and I'm getting practice in. And it's because I've got references like these that I'm able to do so much more than I was before I went to the Renegade. And that's all I got for you today, folks. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for staying and watching to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, if you enjoyed the content, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to head over to Instagram and Facebook. Give me a like and a follow over there as well. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you next time. Bye.